In this video, I'd like to demonstrate really quickly a couple of editing tips, mostly reminders, but also some things I've learned over the years, and then focus on how you edit features after you've digitized them and realize there's mistakes or that you want to zoom in and make them more precise or something. So before starting this video, I logged into the remote access. I copied chapter 13 from the Getting to Know ArcGIS into my GIS work folder. I started up ArcMap. I set the default geodatabase to one of the chapter 13 data geodatabase options, and I zoomed in to this area, which is just a little bit northeast of Central Park, just so I can have a spot to do some digitizing. And I turned on the streets layer, right? So those are all the steps I've done prior to starting. And now I want to draw some features that I will deliberately do in with mistakes so we can edit them, and also a couple of things I want to draw just to illustrate best practices a little bit. So you may remember, to start editing, one of the options you've learned is to start the editor toolbar here. And if you do, you first have to say, well, which geodatabase do you want to edit in and which layer do you want to edit? So, which is fine, but you can also start editing this way by highlighting the layer you want to digitize in. And I'm going to do some streets first. Right-clicking on it and say Edit Features, Start Editing. And the main way that that's faster is that it's already told it which geodatabase to edit in, so it's saved one step. And I just want to do a couple of things. I'm going to draw a street that clearly has some errors in it, and I'm going to draw a curve by clicking a lot of times and then make some mistakes in it. And then I'll double click, right? So I drew a line that deliberately has mistakes. I want to show you why that's a bad approach. And then I'm going to do a counter example. Okay, now I'm going to digitize a curving line in the way that you learned how to do it in the exercise, and show you how that's a better way to do it. So I'm going to set the end point of the curve, and then set the curve route to follow this railroad track, and then revert to the straight line to finish my railroad. Okay, and I'll draw one more polygon. I want to digitize a polygon. Let me remind you, I'm working on remote access and I've been able to move around the screen this quickly, but let's imagine that I'm digitizing this series of water treatment areas, and what I want to show you is the value of fewest clicks possible, right? So I'm going to put a vertex there, and I'm going to put a vertex there, and I'm going to put a vertex there, and you can see how easy it's going to be for me to go crooked versus if I just go straight to the corner, vertex there, vertex there, and then I'm going to come back to the other side and go all the way to the other end, make a nice straight line, double click to finish, right? So I've made some edits. Now I'm going to save them. Now let's edit, right? So chapter 13's exercises are focused on editing, and so the first thing is we're using that word in different ways, right? An editing session lets you create features, it lets you change the shape of features, and it lets you add or delete or change attributes, right? And we're going to use the word editing for all of those. So I've created these features, but now I want to fix the mistakes that I made, some on purpose and some by accident. So the key is this edit tool, right? And so I click on the edit tool. Okay, I'm back, and I fixed the definition query again, and now you can see those streets that I drew as well as these. And now I want to edit. And so the first thing is if I click on the edit tool and then single click on a feature, I can move that whole feature around, which typically I don't actually want to do, but that's what will happen if you single click on it. Most often what we want to do is double click on it, and that exposes the vertices of the feature. And now I can edit its shape by dragging those to where they're supposed to be. So I'm going to go for that corner, and I think this one should be at that corner. And whoop. And notice that as far as the software is concerned, this feature still exists out here, those mistaken vertices, because I haven't saved the edits yet. This is obviously a mistake, and this is the real corner, so I'm going to fix that corner by deleting that vertex instead of dragging it, right? And now I'm going to say save edits, and you'll see that the new shape is taking place, right? So I can fine-tune this some more. I could zoom in a little bit. Yeah, I want to fine-tune it some more by dragging the corners. And remote access doesn't love this, but it is working. And it's hard to fix a polygon and make it have nice 90-degree corners if you didn't make 90 degrees corners to start with. It's hard to fix that. So that's something we need to keep in mind. And then I want to save those edits to move on to another one, right? So let's come to this other polygon and see the problem of how I edited it, right? So I double click to get the vertices. You can see that the one I did by just doing corners has a nice straight line, and the one that I created too many vertices on is all jagged, right? So one thing is that once you're in editing mode, and once you have the vertices showing, you can select multiple ones with just by dragging a rectangle. And I selected all 3 of these vertices, and then I could delete them all at once because they're all selected. And now I'm going to have a straight line from this corner to the middle. But you know what? I might as well get rid of those vertices too. So I'm going to select the 2 of them at the same time and delete them. And now I have a nice straight line where before I had a jagged line, and I would want to save those edits, right? So I've fixed that polygon quite nicely. And now let's go back to this, compare these 2 curves, right? So I can edit a line feature in the same way. I double click on it and realize that, well, I already knew there were lots of mistakes. To fix those mistakes, I'm going to have to drag these vertices one at a time to where I really wanted them. And that's going to be a pain, right? So my point of that was, if you're drawing a curve or a straight line, you should digitize the fewest number of vertices possible. Now, sometimes you don't know if you want vertices, right? If I was digitizing, let's say, along here, and I thought I might need a vertex here, and I might need one there, and I might need one there, well, then I better put one there, and realize that that's increasing the chance of making mistakes. But let's imagine that, you know what, I want to clean this up. I can again select multiple vertices, a whole bunch of them at once, and just right click and say delete. And now I have a straight line there when before I had this awful one. The difference is if I had a line created with the arc tool, then I could just fiddle with the positioning of this a little bit and change the line much more controlledly. Or similarly, I could move the whole thing sideways. Yeah, there we go. I can move the whole line at one time if I've got it in the wrong position compared to what I was doing over here with all of those vertices, right? So that's the advantage of the arc tool, digitizing tool, versus the clicking a lot of vertices to make a corner. And let's imagine now that I came back to this polygon and realized, you know what, it really should include this area out here for some reason. But I've got a rectangle here and I wish that it extended out here. Well, then you can do this. Click to get the vertices, then you right click and say insert vertex. And I know I need another corner as well. I'm going to insert another one. And now I can drag those vertices out to where I wish that polygon had gone and quickly fix that, right? And now I'm going to make another attempt to straighten this up, but it's a little bit hard, as I said, once you've created a feature that doesn't have right angles. Actually, let me demonstrate this cut polygons tool as well, which we're using in chapter 13. Sometimes city planners especially have, big pieces of land that they want to subdivide into smaller parcels, and so the cut polygon tool is really useful for that. The thing that's not necessarily clear in the chapter is that it needs to have some vertices to cut from. So it's snapping now to the vertex that I had in there, and then it can snap to that other vertex. And now it's cut that polygon into two features, which I can prove to you by clicking on them one at a time. Right? So you click the tool, then you select one vertex and then the other and double click to finish it, and it will cut that polygon in two. And then the opposite of that, let's imagine that I had drawn these two as separate polygons and now I wish they were the same. The way to fix that is to use the edit tool, click on one of them, hold the shift key down, click on the other one. Now they're both highlighted. Now I can editor drop down and select merge. It says, all right, where are those features that you're merging? And now it's created one polygon out of two. So that's pretty common when you're digitizing. And so just a couple of tips about editing.